So, posture, I think all of you are sitting pretty good, pretty well. So if you have an upright back, it's good. And level shoulders, head tilted maybe slightly downwards, arms relaxed by the side of your body. Hands can be in the lap or just simply palms down on your knees. Especially if you're a beginner, it's good to just, feel relaxed about it. It's don't think that you're doing anything very extraordinary or special, because you might then develop some tension. Just main thing here for our purposes is to be upright and relaxed. And of course, very important, attentive, aware. In sayings attributed to Lord Buddha, he said something to the effect that, awareness is the path of life, of the spiritual path. Non-awareness is the path of death, spiritual death. So we have to be very alert and aware, but in a relaxed fashion, because we already have enough stress probably and speed, uptightness in our life. So here we are not wanting to prolong that. Let's feel relaxed and happy. Actually rejoice that there are people who are willing to slow down and pay attention and look inwards, which is where Lord Buddha said the source, the origin of our happiness and suffering can be found. The main origin, the main source. So that's very wonderful. The posture itself is really very powerful and representative, symbolic. So why do I say that? Well, the uprightness of it suggests that we are going to be stable, upright, dignified, not sort of slouching and giving in to neurosis or to any kind of self-pity. It's a good, powerful, confident posture, but not arrogant. It's not that kind of confidence. It's a very healthy confidence, self-confidence. And one of the reasons we need that self-confidence is because we are going to be working not only with ourselves in the spiritual path, but we will be working with, relating with others. So the front of our body, you see, is open, isn't it? Front of our body in this posture is open. So we say that the heart is exposed, it's open to the world. And why should it be open to the world? Well, we know very well, everybody, just like me and you, want to be happy and don't want any kind of suffering. And yet, due to circumstances and inner conditions, we all have many problems, many sufferings, tremendous sufferings. And we also know, if we even give it slight thought, we know that we depend on other people for everything, including this very body we received. So whether it's that, all the way up to today, we could never have lived one day without the results, the efforts of others, what others have produced for us, made available for us, we see every day, we use every day. So how could we possibly ignore other people? We cannot. So this posture is a confident posture where we are also proclaiming our wish and ability to work with other people. And if we can, to help them, and at least not create more bother for them, more suffering, because we all have enough challenges already, right? So feel the posture, your contact of your body with the cushion or chair, contact of your hands with the body. How do your shoulders feel? Just bring yourself into the body. We're not just working with thoughts and mind. We're also embodied beings, and our body is most precious. And we need it, so we must respect it and pay attention to it. So, how do you feel in your body? Are there any sensations? Just gently be aware of them, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And at this stage, you can already, of course, notice that you are breathing. The breath is entering and leaving your body. Be aware of that also. It's probably entering through your nostrils mainly, so be aware of that process and the sensation of breath between upper lip and nostrils, if you can. If that's a bit too difficult right now, doesn't matter. Just bring your attention then to the overall sense of the breath entering and leaving your body, maybe the movement of your abdomen as you breathe in and out. Mm-hmm. And then we can briefly come back to the motivation before we have 5 or 6 minutes of breath awareness. We can remember something. One very great Indian scholar, Pandit, who was also a very compassionate person in the 8th century, called Shantideva, he said, is the purpose of life only to give pain to my mother at the time of my birth? Is that why, is that the main purpose for living? Of course not. So I must make something very meaningful with this precious human life, which according to the great beings is very rare and hard to obtain, this kind of a very precious human life, where we have all the opportunities to study and practice and so forth. How am I going to use this life? So these great masters have encouraged us to use it to develop all the causes and conditions to become that kind of person who is able to benefit not only themselves, but others as well, to really guide and help other people who are, as we said, suffering in many ways. Especially to be able to guide people on the path to complete liberation and awakening, Buddhahood, we say. So this is also something that even, we beginners should also remember, that we all have this extraordinary potential to wake up completely, however confused and upset we may be right now. we can all wake up completely. Why? Not through magic, but because we have this very pure, abiding goodness. Let's call it goodness, basic sanity. We all have this. Maybe a little bit buried right now under all kinds of mental constructs and thoughts and so forth. But we all have that. Like a jewel, like a buried jewel. Which may be buried under, covered with lots, tons, mountains of garbage. But the jewel is there. It is not affected by the garbage. It is simply covered. It's not spoiled, but it is hidden for now. So we do have that potential to uncover the jewel of our mind, which is this sublime kind of continuum, sublime awareness, which can never be polluted. So this is really very good news. We should be happy. And we must, since we have this, and every being has it, so our duty is to, you could say, our long-term mission, if you like, is to help people uncover the jewel of their minds, which will give them everlasting satisfaction and the ability to help others. So this is something extraordinary, really extraordinary and wonderful. So be happy about it. Whatever confusion, upset, irritation, anger, whatever we may be experiencing sometimes in our life, we don't need to hold on to it and think that is what I am. No, I'm not that. Much more than that, Okay, so enough motivation, but just to mention that in general we say we generate a motivation of compassion. Matlab, we understand the dukkha or the suffering, the unsatisfactoriness that everyone goes through, and we develop, as much as we can, a heartfelt wish, aspiration, that how wonderful it would be if I could be able to, help people be free of their pain in whatever way, physically, mentally, every way. How wonderful that would be. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that. So you could think some very loved people, some people you love very much, who are suffering. You can start by thinking of them. And then if you can, just expand that circle a little bit, including more and more people whom you know are going through all kinds of misery. So spend a few moments with this, which we call the motivation. And then let's just spend a few moments with our breath. For the beginners, we just do very simple way. older students, do what you usually do. For beginners, I would say just be aware you're breathing in and out in a very relaxed fashion, not pranayam. Don't try and control it in any special way. Normal breathing. And be aware, especially when you breathe out, can be a sense of relaxing and letting go when you breathe out, which is very calming and very useful for us in this speedy 21st century. And your mind, of course, will get distracted with thoughts, memories, plans. That's okay, it's normal. But see if you can be just aware, recognize when it happens, and not get caught up in those thoughts, okay? Just let them go. Gently let go of the thought and come back to the breath. Come back to the breath. In a very relaxed but attentive manner. We'll just practice for 3-4 minutes. Make sure your body is relaxed, muscles in your face relaxed, around the eyes, around the mouth. Very easy to generate tension there. So for all of us, perhaps, well, not all of us, especially for beginners, maybe good to just keep your sessions very short if you decide to experiment with some meditation practice. Don't sit for too long because you'll just get tired, you'll go to sleep, or you'll start just planning things in your head. Better to keep short. That's one advice that we give, which makes a lot of sense, I think. So, okay, I will tailor this session, partly because we have some new people, but also because it's always good for even the older students to remember certain things. If you get really bored, you can go to sleep. In fact, sometimes people lie down and go to sleep here. We don't terribly encourage it, but once they started snoring, so then, yeah, anyway, that's quite humorous. Okay, so it is said that Lord Buddha, after he attained enlightenment, and of course, even the beginners, maybe you know a little bit about Buddha's story, he was really very brave, although some people, like one of my aunts, thinks he was very terrible because he left his wife and child, but actually he's very brave because he decided that really he needed to investigate certain things about life and go out and really seek the truth. And I think his motivation was always very good. He wanted to be of benefit to other people as well. So, he left his very comfortable palace life, went searching, and for years engaged in very, very, very ascetic practice, hardly eating anything for years and so forth. Anyway, when he attained in Bodh Gaya, under the Bodhi tree, when he attained awakening, after that, he is apparently spent about 7 weeks in the vicinity of the Bodhi tree, the people tree, and he was very hesitant about teaching. And he felt that people would not understand what he has experienced. Very hard to explain to people who are just caught up in worldly affairs, worldly matters, whose wisdom faculty is not well developed. So he said it will be painful for me, irksome for me, to teach and people not to understand. So better for me to just retire into the forest. Luckily, he didn't do that. He was requested by some very high beings, high-level evolved beings, who requested him, pleaded with him, really, said, there are some people who will understand, so you must teach. So luckily he taught for another, 50 years he taught, and so we can benefit from that now. Part of the reason I'm saying this, giving you this anecdote now, is because what comes next in the text that we are studying will be very difficult for many of us modern people to accept at all. And in fact, when I was rereading it this morning, I was also thinking, goodness me, is it really like this? Did Buddha really see things in this way? Or is it being invented by Indian pundits and just regurgitated by great Tibetan saints? And I felt it couldn't be that. It's so many of the great masters, all of them in their great texts talk about different realms, different ways of existing, let's say, apart from just the human and the animal realm that you and I can see, So all of, the Buddha's teachings, whether we take the early Pali canon, the early teachings, or the somewhat later Mahayana texts, all of them talk about 6 realms, okay? 6 realms existing. It's just taken for granted. Just like, I don't know, in science, you take gravitation, relativity, and so forth for granted. Traditional Buddhists, let's say, is that a good word? Anyway, Buddhists who are maintaining the lineage that has come from Lord Buddha and aren't just inventing something on their own, those people all maintain that there are there is more than we can see with our eyes, And of course, they're not just basing it on what the Buddha said, they're basing it on their experience. Okay? So we've come to a point in this great text, which was written 621 years ago, in 1402, where the teacher, Lama Tsongkhapa, has been talking about the importance of relying on a spiritual teacher properly. He's been talking about the preciousness of this human opportunity we have as human beings. Not just any human being, but human beings with all of the wonderful opportunities we have, the leisure we have to investigate, practice, and so forth. He has spoken about, in this particular text, also how to engage in a meditation session, the importance of meditation, how to create good circumstances in one's life to support the meditation. And then we have just completed a chapter on impermanence and death, which came just after the chapter on, how precious life is, like that. So, we have this precious life, but if we're honest, we really don't know how long we have it, yeah? So that's been, and that is a very, very important point to realize that I have this opportunity. Yes, I know I'm going to die, or at least intellectually I know, maybe not a gut level feeling yet. But what is even more difficult is that, I really don't know when I'm going to die. People can die at any time for many reasons. So how about I, stop wasting time and put my energy where it really matters in training my mind, investigating causes of happiness, causes of suffering, eliminating the causes of suffering, and promoting the causes of happiness, for example. So this all needs to be understood and practiced, So what comes next in this text is saying, okay, I'm going to die. Don't know when. When I die, the text says, only a subdued mind, a good mind, a mind which is permeated with spiritual truth and experience, only that kind of mind is going to help me. If I'm confused, upset, angry, sad to be leaving people and property and bank accounts, then I will not have a good death. And then according to Buddha, I'll also not have a pleasant rebirth. So, yeah, this text, as all of Buddhism really, takes for granted that experience does not stop when we die. That, yes, we have a brain which is intimately connected with what we call consciousness or mind, but brain is not just the mind. Or let's say the mind is not just the brain. It's much more. It is something different from the brain. Brain matter you can see, you can, experiment with it and put it in a jar and so forth. The mind cannot be treated in that way. Mind can only be experienced in meditation. It is colorless. It doesn't have weight or shape or form as such. It is connected with a very, very, very subtle kind of wind energy or pran, but mind itself, yeah, it is not the brain. So anyway, the point, and this is something to investigate much more, especially for newcomers, we say that the subtle, you could say the most subtle continuum of consciousness cannot be cremated or buried, it carries on. It carries on. Leaves the hotel of this body and goes to another hotel, goes to another body. And there can be many different kinds of rebirth. And this chapter is called Reflecting on Your Future Life. If you're going to die, and according to Buddha, the mind continues, so then we have to reflect on what's coming next. You know, this is just, yeah, is there any hot water? Is it just, somehow my throat is really sorry. Is there some at the back? Bas chota cup mein de dena. This I'll keep. Thank you. So sorry. I'm just, otherwise I'll be making noises all the time and it's not good. So, yeah, what's coming next? When I have experienced my last breath, what's coming next? You know, okay, this is not going to give a full interpretation of the in-between state, which we also talk about. It's just going to talk about what happens actually in the next life. Thank you very much. So, okay. So I'm not going to go through it word for word because it will just, well, I don't know. It'll upset me again, and it will certainly upset the newcomers, possibly, unless some of you have had near-death experiences where you have seen future life a little bit. But otherwise, it'll be upsetting unless you are used to casualty department of hospitals. And even then, it is worse. Because, okay, let me do it, and then slowly we'll go through it and deal with it in hopefully a way that is doesn't create people to walk out of the door. Okay, and people online also, you have to take a few deep breaths and try and think about why would, you know, Buddha or these people say all these things if they were patently, you know, untrue, and are they all, you know, a little bit misguided or anyway, yeah, I don't need to say anything else right now. Let's look at what Tsongkhapa says on page 161 of the English translation. Since it's certain that you're going to die soon, as previously mentioned, you can't remain in this life. And as you do not cease to exist after death, you will be reborn. Furthermore, you will be reborn in either a happy or a miserable realm, because there is no birthplace other than these two types of beings. Yeah, it's like you go to Horsecast Metro, you can either go south to Gurgaon or you can go north towards the university and Rajiv Chowk. There's no other choice. Oh, hold on. Sorry, there are more choices now at Horsecast. But if you go on the yellow line, there's only two choices, up or down, you know. Gurgaon, we'll say, is down, and university is up. Okay. So anyway, since you are control, this is a very important sentence coming. Okay, this is speaking about experience of ordinary people, yeah, like you and me, or me anyway, not great yogis. Great yogis and people who have totally controlled their minds, they have different kind of experience. But this is what is experienced by ordinary people, according to Lord Buddha and the great saints and scholars who have had what we call clairvoyance, the ability to not only see what others are experiencing, but also to remember their own experience and to be aware through their own experience. Okay, since you are controlled by your karma and cannot choose where you will be born, then you will be reborn in the manner in which your virtuous and non-virtuous karma force you to be reborn. Matlab, you know, a lot of New Age literature is saying, oh, you know, we kind of choose our rebirth in order to do the work we have to do, you know, to repay the debts. Yeah, sure, in a sense, rebirth is like that, but we don't choose. We don't have choice unless, according to the great beings, we don't have choice unless we have already really trained our minds. It's like this. Do you have choice over your last thoughts when you go to sleep at night? Do you have that ability yet to control your last thought before you sleep? Do we have the ability to control our dreams? Do we have the ability to wake up definitely in a certain way that we want to, with a certain thought in our head? If we do, great. But most of us don't even have that. So when we have any number of karmic seeds which can be ripening at the time of our death, we cannot at all be sure that they will be happy ones, pleasant ones. We don't yet have that control because, as it will be made more clear, we have spent most of our life with an uncontrolled mind. In fact, most of our lifetimes up to now with an uncontrolled mind, meaning not well disciplined, not well focused, and so forth. So what can we expect, when we die? Virtuous refers to, it's an old-fashioned word, virtue. The Romans and Greeks used it, I guess. We don't use it I never hear modern people in my conversations with people, I never use the word virtue. Unless I'm at Tushita, then I'm forced to use the word virtuous, non-virtuous. Koi nahi kehta hai. What would virtue be in Hindi? Punya, kind of punya. Punya, pap. If we hear those words in Hindi, we think, koi sant bol raha hai, koi swami bol raha hai. Chodo usko. But virtue is that virtue. If we create virtue, it is giving rise to happiness. We can say in general, virtue gives rise to happiness. And really, the powerful kind of virtue gives birth to long-time happiness, very long-time happiness. Non-virtue, so let's make it very clear now for beginners what we mean by non-virtue in general: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, idle chit-chat, gossip, and then covetous, greedy mind, mind of ill will and hatred and so forth, and then a mind filled with wrong views, ignorance. These 10 things in general is what is propelling most of us right now, a lot of the time, So most of the time. So these factors, these akushal karam, non-virtuous karmas, actions, they create suffering according to Buddhism. The virtues, which are the opposite of these 10, they create happiness, causes for happiness. Okay? So since you will be reborn in the manner in which your virtuous and non-virtuous karma impel you to be reborn, we'll be forced to. We won't have that choice. This being the case, contemplate the suffering of the miserable realms, thinking, how would it be if I were born in a miserable realm? Just like if we plan to go to another part, to relocate to another part of Delhi or India or another country, we have to check where we're going, right? Would I really be happy in that place? Of course, here, according to this tradition, we know, it is said, we know what happens in certain places. When we go to another part of India, Delhi, or the world, we don't actually know precisely what it's going to be like there, right? Here, the teachings are saying, this is what it's going to be like in certain places where you can be reborn. It's going to be just like this. Of course, we can also remember Buddha's teaching to investigate, not to accept anything he says just like that, just because he's saying it, or because some Pandit is saying it, or some 15th century Tibetan is saying it. We don't have to accept it before we check, but then we do need to check carefully. And checking can't be done always very quickly. We have to study and see why this is being said, how it could be that such realms may exist. So let me just mention what the realms are. I've mentioned this term already. Human, animal, you and I know, I guess. We've seen them. We are humans. We see animals. But there are 4 other realms in general which exist. 2 upper realms and then 3 lower realms. So we've had humans, animals. The upper realms, we can be born as a kind of a very elevated, long life God in a kind of stable meditative awareness for eons of time, but not liberated, not liberated. When the good karma runs out, their meditation finishes. So even those gods, so-called gods, devas, they have to experience suffering at the end of their long lives. Then there are asuras, or the demigods. They are beings filled with, it is said, sort of jealousy, envy, engaged in a lot of conflict, They have powers which we humans don't have, but they're constantly in a state of sort of competitiveness and warfare, even with other gods and so forth. So they also suffer a lot, and they're by no means in any way, awakened or enlightened. They don't have any compassion or real wisdom, that they are manifesting in their lives, and they have no interest, you see, in spiritual teachings. Both of these realms, no interest at all, because the upper gods are just blissed out in their meditation or their remarkable mental pleasures, which they have, just by thinking about things, they have wonderful experiences. So they're not interested in spiritual truths, they're kind of blissed out. And the asuras are too caught up in their jealousy, their envy, their competitiveness, and we can see a kind of a reflection of that in our own life sometimes, or in the lives of rich and famous and beautiful people. A lot of jealousy, a lot of backbiting, a lot of competitiveness, and so on and so forth. If you scroll down in your smartphones, there's part of your smartphone will have news stories on that level of people, what they're engaged in, Or if you get any filmy magazines, if there are any left, I don't know. It's all online now, I guess. So you'll see how some people are living their lives in a constant sense of competitiveness and aggression, which is a kind of subtle aggression with others. So that's like the demigod realm. Now, then we have human, then we go below human, we have animal. Animal we can see, but of course we may have a glorified view of animals, especially if we have a nice pet, which we keep very clean and so forth. And we might watch animal videos on TV, animal programs, which is kind of glorified kind of entertainment. It's like entertainment, but actually you think about it, it's awful, it's dreadful. I mean, a lot of it is dreadful. Would you want to be that gazelle, which is being almost eaten alive, savaged by a leopard or a lion or a tiger, we wouldn't want to be, have our throats ripped out, our blood drunk when we're not even fully dead. We wouldn't like that, but it makes good entertainment on the screen, right? If you have a good HD big screen, 10 feet wide, it's amazing. But the animal realm is suffering, it is suffering. Anyway, there'll be more on that in this chapter. Then that's not the end of it. There are two more realms. Pret, of course, we're used to this word in India, I guess, especially if we had grandmother, grandfather who are, into traditional things. We've heard that word, but of course, we modern people think it's all nonsense, perhaps, that there could be hungry ghosts, kind of very, beings like that who are continuously hungry and thirsty and with strange bodies and tremendous suffering, and whom we, in pujas, we can offer something to them. I think in traditional Hindu pujas also there would be offerings to the pret and so forth. So there's that realm, which if we read about it can make us very upset, and then even below that realm, there's another realm, Narakvasi, the hell realm, the hell beings. So this is now beginning to sound like traditional. Some people might think, traditional Christianity, just trying to scare us into, converting or becoming this or that. The fear of hell, and hellfire and so forth. And actually, that's how my great-grandfather was brought up in Scotland, and he rejected that. He didn't like it, because they would put the finger of the young student in a candle flame and say, that hurts, doesn't it? Yeah. So what would it be like to burn forever and ever, in the Scottish accent? And my granddad didn't like that. So when he went to university, he became much more rationalist. He remained very religious, he was a great believer, a great preacher, but he didn't like that aspect of it. Whether or not he believed in hell realms to the end of his life, I have no idea. Probably not. But Buddhists believe in hell realms because we feel if you create the causes for something, you will receive the result. if you insist on jumping into a fire, you will get burnt. If you create the causes to fall into a fire, you will get burnt. If through aggression and anger and hatred we create the causes, we will be harmed in some way or other. This is the logic. I mean, it's much deeper than that, but it's like you help others, you will be helped. You will get good circumstances and all the resources you need in life. If you are helpful, kind, generous to others, you will receive what you need, usually, even in this life, very often. If we harm others, especially with hatred, it's because hatred is like a kind of burning. So maybe that's one way to begin to understand what the Buddhists are talking about when we talk about the hell realms. One way to look at it initially, of course, you see I'm skirting the issue. I haven't even gone into the text because it is really quite something. I will read part of it, but you might feel you're listening to, Spielberg movie script or something, I don't know, even Spielberg hasn't done this, I don't know. Anyway, so how would it be if I were born in a miserable realm? This is what Nagarjuna is, and the great beings are saying. Nagarjuna is this gentleman here. He was a very, very, very great Buddhist scholar of the Mahayana, often depicted with the nagas, or the snakes above his head. So he says, and he's renowned for his wisdom teachings, Nagarjuna, on the nature of reality. But here in this particular text, he says, reflect daily on the hells, both those extremely hot and the cold ones as well. Reflect also on the hungry ghosts who are emaciated by hunger and thirst. Observe and reflect on the animals overcome by the suffering of stupidity. Eliminate the causes of these realms above mentioned, and create the causes of happiness. A human body in this world is difficult to obtain. Once you have it, diligently stop the causes of miserable rebirths. So this, as we know, is the path of the small capacity person. When we speak of three kinds of people, in the beginning, this is the least we have to do. We have to stop the causes of miserable rebirths. Why? Because if we were in hell or a preta or an animal or a long life god or a demigod, we would have no interest or ability to reflect, study, reflect, meditate on spiritual truths, on the Dharma. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely no way we would be able to do that. Who knows? There might be split seconds of wanting or remembering Dharma in one of those realms, but one wouldn't be able to do anything about it, So, Tsongkhapa then says, it is extremely important to meditate in general on the sufferings of cyclic existence, and in particular on the sufferings of the miserable realms. For if you contemplate how you have fallen into the ocean of suffering, you will then turn away from it, and thereby you will overcome your pride and arrogance. So right now we do have quite a lot of pride and arrogance, especially if we have a certain status or money or wealth or, the best car in the neighborhood. We do develop arrogance, and we forget that we're going to die and that we're either going up or down. And if we create a lot of miserable, negative causes, we're going down, We're going down. Or up, but into the wrong sort of upper places. So seeing suffering to be the result of non-virtuous karma, you will be careful to avoid sins and infractions. Infraction mean not keeping your vows and, not maintaining proper discipline. Since you want happiness, not suffering, and understand that happiness is the result of virtue, you enjoy cultivating virtue. This is the kind of mind he's saying we need to, develop. Once we understand this, we will enjoy cultivating good causes because we are horrified. We'll be horrified by the results of, negative karma, or non-virtue. It's a kind of common sense. It's not scaring us. It's like saying, if you don't look left and right while you're crossing Aurobindo Marg now, you will get run over. There's a great possibility of getting run over. If we eat stale food, contaminated food, we'll get sick or even die. We have to see that what we experience is the result of what we do, what we say, what we think. This is very basic Buddhism, very important. Things have causes. They don't happen through the will of God or the Buddha or without cause or random cause. No. It's all very clear-cut in a sense. So, and also, this is very important. Not only do you enjoy cultivating virtue, if you think about these things, once you have assessed your own condition, you develop compassion for others. You see, it's good to develop compassion. We have compassion when we see, hungry or sick people lined up outside All India Medical Institute, in the sun, waiting, for their appointment. Or we see people on television, even starving to death, maybe, although they don't show many images like that anymore. But, there's so many causes of, results of suffering that we see in the world. But when we realize that and begin to understand that beings could experience not just human suffering, but animal suffering, hellish suffering, hungry ghost suffering. And although, of course, right now the God realms don't sound like suffering, not the upper ones, they don't sound like suffering, they are suffering because we're blissed out and we don't know that at the end of this bliss, we're going down, We're just using up good karma. And of course, the demigods, they are suffering very patently through their envy and aggression and conflict. So if we understood that this person in front of me, for example, in the metro or wherever, who, hasn't had a bath in the morning and smells or is, doing something else I don't like, then we realize, God, this person, they could have all this kind of suffering, and they have had all this kind of suffering in previous lifetimes, according to Buddha. They have had all this kind of suffering, and they will in the future have this kind of suffering if they don't practice virtue. They will have suffering. So then some kind of feeling can arise, at least when you get out of the metro. Wow, you feel some compassion for all these people going up and down on the yellow line day after day, and they're all going to die, and all the people on the magenta line as well, and all the people on all the lines, and all the people in all the world, are just going here and there, scurrying around, being busy and trying to survive or whatever people are doing, and then they're going to die. And then they're going to go into one of these realms. And if they're lucky, they'll have a human life. And if they're really lucky, due to, not really luck, but if they've created the cause, they'll have a rebirth like you and me right now, able to investigate the Dharma without fear of being eaten alive by some other being or, whatever. We're able to sit here for an hour and a half or, without being disturbed by any other being. So that would be a really fortunate rebirth. That would be amazing. That would be so rare. There are 32 million or so people in the greater Delhi area, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us here at Tushita, and 16 of you online, okay? 8 plus 16 equals 24. So I don't know what percentage of 32 million that is, but I'm saying we're quite, I would say, I'm not being proud, I'm just saying we can consider ourselves kind of elite, We're more fortunate than, than the Prime Minister's office or his cabinet, much more so, probably. So anyway, you develop compassion for others. After you have turned away from cyclic existence, this is the word used here for which we use the common word in Hindi, sansar. Sansar. Westerners say samsara. Sansar, we say cyclic existence, going round and round and round and round again and again, being reborn without control. And if we think about it, like enough, I think probably it makes one feel a bit sick, You feel sick and tired of it, Why am I going through all this? Buddha says we don't have to go through it. We can stop the cause of it. So after you have turned away from cyclic existence, you develop an aspiration for what? Liberation, moksha, kevalya, mukti, bodhi, nirvana. Well, bodhi is a bit higher than all of these, but nirvana, ending of suffering, peace, which is not the highest goal, by the way, in Buddhism. Higher than that is the goal of becoming a Buddha ourselves. We can all become Buddhas. Remember, I told you we all have this precious jewel of a mind that can transform into the Buddha mind. Not just being free of suffering, but becoming a Buddha who then can benefit beings in extraordinary ways, mind-blowing ways. Just like these teachings are mind-blowing in one way on the suffering, what I've read a little bit of the teachings on Buddha, what a Buddha is, what a Buddha can do, that is also mind-blowing. So you develop an aspiration for liberation. Frightened by suffering, you fervently go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Yeah, they're not afraid to use these words. Yeah, we have to be frightened by suffering. What's the point of not being frightened by sickness or disease or whatever? I mean, so long as we are not, what's the word? Rendered helpless and, can't move. Frightened, so then we do something about it, Frightened. We should be frightened of bad karma. We should be frightened of harming others. We should be frightened of, eating contaminated food and stuff like that. Okay. You fervently go for refuge to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and actually the chapter after this tells us what that means, going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Meditation on suffering. This is a very important sentence. Meditation on suffering is the great summary that includes these and many other key points of practice. Matlab, this meditation will help us see suffering as the result of non-virtuous karma, help us develop the real aspiration to be free of that kind of karma and to practice positive actions. Kushal karam. Kushal karam ka abhyas karna hai. Akushal karam ko chhodna hai. Shantideva says in his Bodhisattva deeds, since without suffering, there is no determination to be free, you, mind, stay fixed. Matlab, stay fixed on suffering for a while. Because without understanding suffering, we'll become very, very complacent. Yeah. You have a good job, let's say, at the moment. You have good money. You have a good body. You have good friends. Your friends cook you good food. You have pleasurable, sensual experiences with your life and friends. You say, what's this big deal about suffering? Yeah, I'm young, I'm okay, I'm enjoying life. Yeah, there's a few problems now and again, but basically, what's the problem? Sab theek hai, chal raha hai. I'm doing very well. I'm well qualified. I'm healthy so far. I have enough money to, generate insurance, health insurance, etc., etc. I even have a good place to live. If not inherited, then I can afford the rent. So what's the problem, lads? Why are you suffering? Dukh. Kyun aise bol rahe ho? Sab theek hai, after all. Chalta hai. What's the big deal? So that means we haven't understood what Buddha means by suffering. Of course, that comes later in the text. Let me just give, So Tsongkhapa will talk about suffering in this chapter, okay? Then he will talk about later the 8 types of suffering, the 6 types of suffering, further meditations on suffering. There's a lot on suffering in this book. So if Tsongkhapa thought and the Buddha thought it wasn't important, they wouldn't talk about it so much. It's very important because it's our condition. And we have to understand, I'll just mention it now, it will be expanded later. Suffering for Lord Buddha doesn't just mean manifest suffering that you and I understand, like pain and mental distress, which is easy to understand because it's just unpleasant. But suffering, according to Buddha, means also things we consider okay or even pleasant. Realizing that they don't end, they cannot give lasting satisfaction or happiness, they're also classified as the suffering of change. And then the very fact we have this kind of body and mind, which is controlled by delusion and karma, that is also dukkha, which is the word we use in Buddhism. Suffering isn't a great word because it is, suffering is much more than, dukkha is much more than suffering. It's kind of a crowded mind, a mind crowded with too much stuff and with all kinds of unsatisfactoriness. Yeah. So then Shantideva gives a list of the benefits of thinking about suffering deeply. And he gives this list before he starts talking about the suffering. You know, this is what they do. It's like, you know, you must buy this medicine because if you buy it, it'll do this, this, and this for you. Yeah, then you go and buy it. Yeah. So dharma mein bhi yehi karte hain. First you give the benefits of doing something, and then the text gives you the meditation. So why should we do this meditation? Furthermore, the good qualities, okay, the good qualities of suffering are that, 1, you dispel arrogance. With your disenchantment, you dispel arrogance. We can become arrogant in a subtle way, gross way, which is what I was mentioning. Things are okay, I'm fine, I'm good, you know. That is a kind of arrogance. Of course, you can also be full of ego and so forth. And, you know, we don't need many examples of that. You can see it in life, in politics, and all, you know, people you know on serials on Netflix. You see people who are inflated by arrogance, who the last thing they are thinking about is suffering of cyclic existence, you know. Sometimes they do. Of course, if it's a good serial, if it's an intelligent filmmaker, it does, but usually not. So you dispel arrogance, you develop compassion for the beings of cyclic existence. How could we not develop compassion when we see the suffering? You know, a mother develops compassion just looking at the suffering of her child. So, you know, when we can see the suffering of so many kinds of beings, not just our children or friends or family, all that suffering, you know, the dog in the street, the frog being eaten by the snake, the gazelle being ravaged by the tiger, the lion having to just engage in that kind of karma, which is not great, you know, just creating more and more causes to be again and again a lion or worse, you know. When we think of all these things, and not even to mention the other realms, then we could start feeling a certain sadness. And then when we see how human beings treat each other, it's just unbelievable. And to see what's happening in the world, how amazing it is that we always want to create divisions. Just reading the newspaper, you get so sad. You just feel disgusted with what's going on, that leaders can't get together. I mean, some do, but then others are not together with them. And I mean, everyone is at loggerheads, yeah. It seems sometimes nobody is helping each other enough. So anyway, when you see all that and you see the unbelievable sufferings, then we develop compassion. And then 2 more things. We carefully avoid akushal karam, pap, translated in this text as sin. I don't know, what would the Tibetan have been? Would it have been a dikpa or something? What is sin? And what does that word mean? Because you've studied Tibetan.
Dikpa, yes.
What does it mean?
But
What's the etymology?
It's like a negative action or something like that.
Negative action,
But,
yeah.
I think the translation of sin
not very good, huh?
So good. Yeah, comes too
Too,
close to Christian.
Too loaded, yeah. Maybe unwholesome karma or something, or non-virtuous action. Yeah. There were 16 translators, so I guess sometimes they probably had disagreements exactly. Imagine 16 people cooking a meal, you know. So then 16 people translating a text. As different chapters must have been done by different people also, maybe. Anyway, so we avoid sin, carefully avoid sin, Tsongkhapa says, the Shantideva says in this text, which Tsongkhapa is quoting. Tsongkhapa is 14th century, he's quoting the 8th century Indian Pandit Shantideva. This book is full of quotes from sutras as well as Indian Pandits, although it's written by a Tibetan. More of that another time, how much India and Tibet are linked in terms of the dharma. Carefully avoid sin, but there's the other one. What do you think the last one is? Okay, not people of the text. You dispel arrogance. You develop compassion. You carefully avoid sin. And the fourth would be? He's talking about the benefits of meditating on suffering. Remember? What creates suffering? What creates happiness? Remember, that's already, we had that. So what do you think the fourth thing is after disenchantment, compassion, avoiding non-virtue, and it's been a long day, folks, no? A long day in Delhi. The air and all has deprived our brain cells of sharpness. Very good, sir. Very good. Exactly. Delight in virtue. Is that what you were going to say? Well done. Huh? Cultivating goodness. Gewa in Tibetan. Yeah. That's virtue, is it? Gewa. Gewa. So to delight in virtue. There's a whole chapter in Shantideva of joyous effort. And I think one definition of that is to delight in virtue, to be happy to engage in positive actions. Because right now, let's face it, we delight in a lot of non-virtuous actions or borderline actions, or, I mean, let's talk about one. If you have a good cup of tea and quite intelligent in the sense you've read a lot or heard a lot, then what is nicer than having a cup of tea or coffee and engaging in, if you can, if it's a holiday, hours of idle gossip. Yeah. Just gupshup, gupshup, gupshup. Not with any, it's different if you're visiting an old person who's lonely and you want to help them. What take you talk with them, that's something else. But just chai pee rahe hain, apne gupshup maar rahe hain, iska taarif kar rahe hain, unka ninda, we're just putting some people down, talking about others, just, talking sport, politics, and all this, on and on and on. Just because, well, we can, and it comes to mind. And there's time, and there's, you can afford the coffee and the tea, or at home, or whatever. So we spend time like that. That is not one of the worst things to do, but we do spend time doing that. And you can think of the other things you do out of that list of 10. We often have hostile thoughts towards others, right? That's quite common. So we shouldn't think that there's no effect just because we haven't actually punched the person or whatever. It has an effect to have hostile thoughts because it's mind. Mind is the creator of our experience. We don't have to go out and hit someone. Hostile thoughts, covetous thoughts, wanting, envious thoughts, and then a mind full of wrong views, like it doesn't matter what I do or think or say, karma is old-fashioned. Rebirth, if we just continue to think like that and neglect to study at least to study what is being said, look at the logics, look at even what many Westerners have written, and especially some of the books on people who have investigated stories of rebirth, children who claim to remember past lives. We should read these things with an open mind. Open mind, remember, is one of the 3 qualities of the good student. Anyone remember the other 2 qualities of the good student? Whoa, as my computer slips off. Anybody remember the 3 basic qualities of a good student, apart from open mind? Anyone online remember? We did this last week. Well, you can think, just what would be 3 qualities that we should all have to be a good student? Not just of dharma, but maybe anything. Open mind, 1, yeah, definitely. Meaning you're open to new information and you're not just coming with your own opinion with a wish to just negate everything you hear. You have an open mind. Attention, of course, that could come under one of the qualities, yes. Determination, yeah. So attention, determination come under what we call diligence, good. And the 3rd quality? Devotion. Not for the absolute beginner. That comes for more Mahayana and Vajrayana people. Intelligence, basic kind of intelligence. We have to be intelligent. We can't be very dumb or stupid or dull and of course, yeah, this is why animal realm is considered so unfortunate. Although animals have tremendous capacity, some of them, of course, of being loyal and helpful, and they can be trained amazingly. We're not saying that. And animals can show, chimpanzees, rats, dogs, dolphins, tremendous qualities they have, but it seems like they cannot, they couldn't benefit from this text that we're studying. Animal lovers, some would say they don't need to. They're already, very compassionate, dolphins and others, but there are levels of things, right? So where were we? Why are we talking about the 3 qualities? Reflection, yeah, we need to have that quality of reflection, of course. But yeah, 3 initial things. We need the open mind, intelligence, and perseverance, diligence, like that. Delight in virtue. So now let me just read a little bit of what I was hinting at earlier. What's the time? 7:45, okay. Although I am afraid to read it, not for myself, but anyway, I've already said so much, you will be expecting something terrible, so you're ready for it, right? This is from the Levels of Yogic Deeds, which is a text by the great Asanga, who is a very great Buddhist master, who is very, very revered. It's from his Yogacharya Bhumi. There are 8 great hells, okay? Fancy, they're actually giving it a number, 8 great hells. The reviving hell, the first, lies 32,000 leagues beneath us. The other 7 are situated every 4,000 leagues beneath that. The living beings of the reviving hell assemble and hack each other with various weapons that appear one by one through the force of karma until they swoon and fall to the ground. Then, I hope you're not leaving. Okay, it's a phone call, all right. Then a voice from the sky commands, revive. And they rise up again, hack each other as before, and experience measureless suffering. Well, I must say, as I started reading that, when you look at modern warfare, I mean, what people do to each other just as human beings, it's a bit like that. It's kind of like that. 60,000 there, 70, 80,000 killed on in certain battles in the First World War alone. Then the generals just say, go back. Of course, doesn't tell the dead people to revive. They don't revive. But then you send more young people to get killed. The flower of French, British, and German youth killed in that war. Unbelievable. Hundreds of thousands. I mean, not to mention the Second World War. Oh, man. And I like to quote this also for people who are totally anti-Russian and think Russia is the devil. I mean, the Russians lost 26 million people in the Second World War. You know, anyway, so we're talking about hacking. Yeah. In the old days, if you look at the old, you know, certain of the serials on Netflix, the old ones, you know, the historical ones, people hacked each other. They didn't kill each other with rifles or drones. They got close up and hacked them. Horrible, horrible. But that's how it was in those days, or at least bow and arrow, you know. In the black line hell, the hell guardians use black lines to mark the bodies of the living beings born there into quarters, eighths, and many other smaller divisions. The beings experience the pain of being split and chopped along these lines with weapons. Are you ready for this next one? When the living beings in the crushing hell gather and congregate, the hell guardians herd them all between two iron mountains, shaped like goat heads, and then squeeze them between the mountains, causing streams of blood to gush from all their orifices. They are also pressed between sheep-headed, horse-headed, elephant-headed, lion-headed, and tiger-headed mountains. When they gather together again, they are inserted into a great iron machine and pressed like sugar cane. So what's going on here? Strange, no? Have you had bad dreams? Have you ever had bad dreams, nightmares? Buddha is not creating your nightmare. God is not creating. Our mind is creating. So that's a hint. And isn't it true, sometimes when we're having extreme pain, it feels like a very, very long time. You know? So there is also that to consider. But the main thing to consider when we hear things like this is not to just say, oh, it's all nonsense. It's to say, okay, let's investigate this. How could this happen? So if you've had bad nightmares, that's a hint that the mind, it's your mind creating it. Let's face it, no one is putting it there. Unless you believe totally just in spirits or bad beings putting it there. But even if they put it there, you're seeing it. Not everyone in your household is having nightmares that night. Why not? You know, you're having your nightmare or your good dream. I had some experiences a few years ago which began to get me understanding a little bit more about what hell might be like, because I went through some very difficult mental experiences. Of course, they were not real hells because I wasn't dead. But it just made me see how the mind can create all kinds of things. And this is created basically by mind. Yeah, hell is created basically by hatred. Hungry ghost experience is created by greed and miserliness and so forth. Animal realm is karma is created through basic, just instinctual behavior, animal-like behavior. Demigod realm is created by extremely jealous, envious, aggressive behavior. Higher God realm is created by certain kinds of meditative equipoise and so forth, but not allied with wisdom and compassion. And the human realm, what is the human soul? Can someone remember what the human realm is largely motivated by? What does Trungpa give as one of the main emotional affects of the human realm? What is the main cause of human realm? I mean, not in terms of precious human rebirth, but what's our main desire? Well, this is all desire realm, but I'll have to check that. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
No, but all these realms are desire realm experiences, right? Unless it's form and formless realm gods. Everything is desire realm. But I'm just thinking, like demigod realm is propelled largely by this competitiveness and jealousy. But what is the human realm? Hell beings are anger, hungry, yeah, maybe attachment in that sense, maybe, yeah. Preta realm is more miserliness, greed. Animal realm, stupidity, and so, yeah. Anyway, so if we look at it that way, we see how we are creating some of these causes. And you see, the other thing I like to suggest, even you have a bad nightmare, okay? You wake up in the morning, and of course, thank God, was only a dream. Even then, you could be feeling bad because of the nightmare. Certain dreams make you, it's really unpleasant. But then you can go to the kitchen, make yourself a tea or coffee or herb, whatever you do, go and take a shower. You wake up, and you can have this kind of more human experience, because the nightmare felt like it wasn't really human experience. You may even have had a different kind of body in the dream, who knows, and met all kinds of different creatures. It's possible. So we can do that. But when we die, we don't have control. We don't just go into the kitchen and make ourselves a lovely cup of tea. We're at the mercy of the karma then. And we don't have a body yet, as like this human body. So it's totally at the mercy of what the mind is creating, just like during the nightmare. So that can be a helpful way of looking at it. I must say, I don't understand the business about the hell being so many, leagues. I can't remember what a league is. Sujitji, do you know what a league is? How many kilometers or miles? It's an old-fashioned English measure, isn't it? A league,
Kabirji, Sujit had asked me.
20,000 leagues under the sea or something, I don't know. What's a league? Anyone? So this many leagues under the earth, and every 4,000 leagues another hell. This I don't understand. I mean, if it's mainly a mind creation, does it mean they're actually those kind of devil, horrible workshops down there with those kind of mountains? I confess to not understanding this. I'm open to people explaining it a bit more. Ajirji, what do you think about all this? Difficult, no? Ajirji, checkmate ho gaye. 4.8 kilometers, thank you. 1 league is 4.8 kilometers, okay? From here to Nehru Place. So that many leagues under the earth is 32,000
to 4.5.
in, actually Nehru Place is 5 from ITO according to the signboard, but let's say 4.8 is Chirag enclave, let's say. So, yeah. Anyway, I think what the least we can take from this is to say, look, if I create unwholesome action, there's going to be an unwholesome result. Because I'm leaving a stain in my consciousness, and like a seed, it grows. A tiny seed can grow into a huge tree, which could be something very amazing and inexplicable for a young child. But we, as adults, we know that happens. It can happen. And if we're botanists, biologists, we know how it even happens. We know. But it's extraordinary, isn't it, how a tiny seed can grow into a huge tree with billions of seeds over its lifetime, and vast. If you see some of the banyan trees in Mumbai or South India, the way they spread, these huge trees, Or you think of a redwood tree in California. It's extraordinary. So a small negative action can grow into a very large negative result, suffering result, if it is not purified, uprooted. Well, of course, the same goes for positive karma. Small positive actions also can give very wonderful, huge results, positive results. Okay, almost 8 o'clock. So there's food for thought, friends. Sorry it went so quickly, but the point we can take home at least is that let's reflect on how we behave. And do we really expect that there won't be any, outcome of unwholesome behaviors? But also we can rejoice in any good behaviors we create, kind thoughts, happy thoughts, small kind actions, etc., etc. We can be sure that that is also something positive. Of course, later we try to just naturally create positive actions without thinking about it and adding up, what's the result going to be for me? That wouldn't be very skillful. But initially, we should be frightened, just like we should be frightened of sickness, of taking risks with bad food or whatever. We should be frightened of sickness, unless we love sickness. If you love sickness, then of course, no problem. Then please go ahead. But most of us don't like sickness, so we should be frightened of the causes. Yeah, so I guess we investigate. That's what it's saying. Investigate more. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't left time for too much discussion, but then maybe just reflect on it. On tomorrow, we have Medicine Buddha and Tara, some Tara practice as well. Medicine Buddha Puja and some Tara practice. Thursday, we'll continue with this, but we'll also engage in some meditations on Thursday. And Nico in the morning is going through meditations. And for those who want more also traditional and a proper introduction to the meditation session with prayers and so forth, then you should attend Nikoji's sessions on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 9 a.m. online and at Tushita as well. Okay, so let's dedicate. At the beginning, we had a motivation that we do this with a sense of care for ourselves, care for others, compassion for others. So when we dedicate, we also, we've done something wholesome, although maybe unusual and even disturbing, but with a positive aim in mind. So that's positive energy. We dedicate it. We don't allow it to just dissipate. We direct it, we put it in a good direction. So what's the direction we want it to go in? We want to, create the cause for us to always have this opportunity to study and practice the Dharma, and always be in the company of great teachers, and like His Holiness and Dalai Lama and other great teachers, and that we may never be separated from this kind of practice, that we may develop these four qualities as a result of thinking about suffering, this disenchantment with the cyclic existence, to delight in virtue, to develop compassion for others, to be afraid of creating non-virtue. May we develop these qualities. May we have long and healthy lives so we can practice a lot. May we think of benefiting one another rather than harming. That would be very good, general sort of thing to reflect on. So in whatever way we can benefit, small ways, big ways. Then may not only people like His Holiness have long and healthy lives and all our other great teachers, but also may those teachers like our kind late Lama Zopa Rinpoche, may they return quickly to guide us again. And for those who are investigating Buddhism freshly as newcomers, may you develop some calm, some clarity, and some kindness from the Buddhist meditation and listening to the teachings. May it help you in your life, in your daily life. Okay, so thank you all very, very much, and hope to see some of you tomorrow for the puja. And if you're coming to the puja, you're welcome to bring some items that can be eaten. And also, of course, things like candles, or that also welcome. And next session like this on Thursday. And as I mentioned, Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, we have the analytical meditations with Nico. And on Tuesday and Thursday, there's the more shamatha and other kinds of meditation with Dipali. Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's at 7 a.m. Yeah. Okay. So thank you all very, very much, and take care and be safe. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kabir ji.
Thank you, Kabir ji.